Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Namaste Krishna Nityam Sevaya Bhagavati Namaste All right, reading from chapter 6, confirmed. Canto, this morning text 23 through 34. By the way, the voice has been really muffled the last couple of days. It's hard to hear at home. Anybody?
Feedback, I turned the volume down.
Sometimes they don't speak in the
Okay.
but the speaker is okay.
Sorry?
The speaker is fine.
No, we couldn't hear the speaker clearly. Yeah, the last couple of times.
Maybe it's something with the Zoom audio.
Okay, anyway, it's something that can be done for the thousands of people who are listening out there. So we'll start with text number 23. Ladies side, men's side. Yes.
When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients or sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead.
For performing sacrificial ceremonies, one requires sacrificial ingredients such as flowers, leaves, and straw, along with the sacrificial altar and a suitable string.
Other requirements are utensils, grains, clarified honey, gold, earth, water, contradiction, or priests from the sacrifice.
Other necessities include invoking the different names of demigods, receiving hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes.
Thus I had to arrange all these necessary materials and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily part of the supreme of the personality of God. By invocation of the demigod's names, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete.
Go ahead and read verse 28. Oh,
28.
28, yeah.
Thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the anointing of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord.
My dear son, therefore your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities.
Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, and the Deityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord.
All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in these powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes.
By his will, I create Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of God, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies.
My dear son, whatever you have blessings may come to you, and you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is on the personality.
Oh, Narada, because I have got hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, hurried with green seed, whatever I say has never proved has never been proved have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to the matter.
Yep, all right, let's read verse 32 and go back. Trijami Tani Yukto Aro Aratika Doshaha Purusha Haritati Krishakti Drik Tijani Tani Yukto Aro Haritita Doshaha From Purusha Rupena Haritati Krishakti Drik
Srijami Tani Yuktoham Haratitad Vashaha Swam Purusha Rupena Haripati Trishakti Tre Yuktoham
Vishwam Purusha Rupena Haripati Trishakti Srijami Tani Yuktoham Hara Harati Tadvasa Vishwam Purusha Rupena Haripati Trishakti
Shijamitan, Tita Basha, Visham Purusha Rupena, Adipati Tisha Tidrit,
Sujami Tarni Yukto Ham Haro Bharati Tadvashaha Vishwam Sharupena Paripati Trishakti Drik Sujami Tarni Yukto Ham Vishwam Purusha Rupena Paripati Trishakti Drik
Anyone more humble than that?
Francais.
All right, synonyms, please.
Sujami
To create,
destroys,
under subordination,
by his eternal form,
in translation. By his will, I create everyone. By his
will I create, Lord Shiva destroys. He himself, in his eternal form, contains everything. He is the powerful controller of the seas and animals.
We like to read the first one. You want to get next?
The conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. The one is Lord Vasudeva, and only by his different energies and expansions are different manifestations, both in the material and in the spiritual worlds, maintained. In the material world also, Lord Vasudeva is everything, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti, everything is Vasudeva only. In the Vedic hymns also the same Vasudeva is held to be supreme. It is said in the Vedas, Vasudevat Paro Brahma Nachanyo Rito Sti Tatvata. In fact, there is no greater truth than Vasudeva. And Lord Krishna affirms the same truth in Bhagavad Gita 7:7. Mattaha Parataram Nanyat. There is nothing above me, Lord Krishna. So the conception of oneness, as overly stressed by the impersonalist, is also accepted by the personalist devotee of the Lord. The difference is that the impersonalist denies personality in the ultimate issue, whereas the devotee gives more importance to the personality of God. Srimad Bhagavatam explains this truth in the verse under discussion. Lord Vasudeva is one without a second, but because he's all-powerful, he can expand himself as well as display his omnipotencies. The Lord is described here as omnipotent by three energies, Trishakti Drik. So primarily his three energies are internal, marginal, and external. This external energy is also displayed in the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Similarly, the internal potency is also displayed in three spiritual modes, Sambit, Sandhini, and Hladini. The marginal potency, or the living entities, is also spiritual, Prakritim Vidhi Me Param. But the living entities are never equal to the Lord. The Lord is Nirasta Samya Atnishaya. In other words, no one is greater than or equal to the Supreme Lord. So the living entities, including even such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are all subordinate to the Lord. In the material world also, in his eternal form of Vishnu, he maintains and controls all the affairs of the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva.
Translation of by his will. I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, names everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies. Is anyone familiar with the Kalpa Vriksha? What is the Kalpa Vriksha?
Desire tree.
Desire tree. What is the quality of the desire tree?
Gives you what you want.
Gives you whatever you want. So what is the Kali Yuga version of the desire tree.
I'm wrong.
The Vaishnava,
That's correct. That's correct. What kind of Vaishnavas do you know? So who here is shot on Amazon? Okay. So on Amazon you can get just about anything. This is the quality of the desire tree. Anything you desire on it, and it will come to you with free shipping if you call the Rickshaw Prime.
Same day fulfillment.
Yeah. Of course, in the spiritual world, it's instant, but hear me out. So among all the Amazon products, you have varieties of choice. For example, if you want to get something to eat, you can get something that is highly processed, full of fats and sugars, so very difficult for your body to process, but very tasty. Or you can get something organic, healthy, natural, which your body will welcome, benefit from. Similarly, if you want to get clothes, you can get clothes that are presentable, practical, useful, or you can get a T-shirt that says "I'm what's stupid." The point is, all varieties of choice are there. So the Vedas are compared to this desire tree. Whatever you may desire, you find affirmation in the Vedic literature. You can find ways, prescriptions that you read earlier in this canto. Right? Want this particular boon, worship this demigod. This boon, that demigod. So it is with life in general. We all have the choices to pursue all kinds of careers, all kinds of economic opportunities, all kinds of recreational activities. We have freedom of choice. And that is why the Vedas are so comprehensive. And to appeal to everybody according to their particular nature. See? So that everyone can find what they want in this desire tree of the Vedic literature, and therefore be motivated to perhaps go deeper and find out the actual purpose of the Vedic literature. It's sort of a special introductory offer, you could say. In other words, Krishna is making it accessible, making himself accessible for everybody, regardless of their material desires. This is why the Vedas are like this desire tree. So the chapter we're reading is called Purusha Shukta Confirmed. Purusha Shukta, anyone know what is Purusha Shukta? Okay, the Purusha Shukta is a collection of hymns from the Rig Veda, which are unique in that they are, Shukta means prayers, but Purusha means what?
Main.
Personality, yes, Purusha. The prayers regarding the Supreme Person, Purusha Shukta. So this section of the Rig Veda describes how the Supreme Person manifests within the universe in sort of a mysterious presentation, because it explains that the Supreme Person manifests in the universe and then sacrifices. Now, this is something more in Christianity, right? This idea of sacrifice for the benefit of others is the main theology. But what does this mean in terms of our understanding of the Vedic literature? That God manifests in the universe and sacrifices himself. Does this remind you of anything from the Bhagavad Gita? Any particular section? Where do we see Krishna manifesting himself in the material universe?
Chapter 11.
Chapter 11, yes, it's the universal form, Virat Rupa. So Krishna, as Brahma is saying in the verses, supplies all the ingredients to sacrifice. So in that respect, he's sacrificing himself. He's providing all of these energies, and he is allowing these energies to be used to worship him in sacrifice. So we may think materially that if you have something and then you sacrifice it, you lose it. But in spiritual mathematics, 1 minus 1 equals 1. And Krishna is able to manifest himself, all the material energies, and yet not detract from himself in any way. He can allow all of the ingredients of the material universe to be used in the sacrifice for him, and yet not be compromised in the least. And in fact, this is the purpose of the whole universe, is give us an opportunity to use all these material ingredients in sacrifice. So this system of sacrifice is described in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that food should be offered for sacrifice, that God gives sacrifice to everyone to perform for the purpose of pleasing Him, worshiping Him. Thus, we understand sacrifice, as Krishna says later in the fourth chapter. No one in this world can be happy without sacrifice. So the Vedas describe all these means for sacrifice, and Brahma is the engineer of the original sacrifice that he's describing in the verses. His son Narada is saying, "Oh, Dad, you must be the supreme." And Brahma is saying, "No, I just get the ingredients for the sacrifice of Krishna, and then I perform the sacrifice. That's all. I'm just the agent. I really can't do anything by myself." So say, for example, you want to build a house. So you go to Lowe's, order a load of lumber, and then you construct the house, and then Lowe's comes and says, "Okay, thank you, this is our house. You've provided all the ingredients. We gave all the ingredients, so now it belongs to us. Thank you for putting it together." Of course, no, they couldn't do that. And you say, "Well, no, I paid for these ingredients." But in fact, we go a little deeper. We even say, if we talk about God, okay, we say God owns the land on which the trees were grown to provide the lumber for Lowe's. So Lowe's has no standing to say it's ours. They got everything from God. They accepted the payment. So in the same way, for us to think that if we use the ingredients that are provided for us, and then it becomes ours, this is material consciousness. Instead of recognizing where all of these facilities that are available to us come from, and acknowledging that, using them for their owner, we go, "Oh, I have a facility, now it's mine. Thank you very much." This is the same error of thought. Therefore, again, as Krishna says, "Nayam lokos ti above yasya." This is the shortest verse in Bhagavad Gita. If you're very lazy, you want to remember one verse, memorize this verse. It only has 2 lines. Or 30 something. Anyway, yes, it has. No one can be happy without sacrifice. In a material sense, let's look at our lives. If we don't go to school, if we don't work, we don't get up in the morning, that may sound like paradise for maybe a week or so. But then how will we feel? What will be our inner experience? Well, I'm just wasting my life doing nothing, accomplishing nothing. So therefore, people go to school and they go to work, they have families, they take money, because that gives a sense of purpose, fulfillment, even material. So in the Gita, we're taught that sacrifice directed to the Supreme is the actual fulfillment of the Vedic literature, the actual perfection of sacrifice. Of sacrifices, also in chapter 10, what does Krishna say he is?
Japa.
Japa. Yes. The most challenging sacrifice. Why is it so challenging to chant Krishna's name? Because for whatever time we're invested in chanting Krishna's name, we are setting aside all of our mental aspirations. We are putting that on the back shelf. Even if we're struggling to chant, just by executing that sacrifice, we're putting the mind in its place. One young man was saying recently, "Well, wouldn't it be better to chant 4 good rounds than 16 inattentive rounds?" And I said that, for me, I have to chant 16 rounds just to try to get 4 good ones. So it is a battle with the mind. So that is yajna, that is sacrifice. So the Purusha Sutta refers specifically to this personal aspect of God, and this is why it's so important in Vedic literature. because the Vedas will give you anything you want, this particular section directs the reader to the reality that God is a person and that he is behind everything that exists. That's why the words of Brahma are confirming this part of the Vedic literature. Purusha Sutta confirmed. It's not only confirming, but defining who is that supreme person. And the purport Srila Prabhupada writes, the conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. The one is Lord Vasudeva, and only by his different energies and expansions are different manifestations, both in the material and the spiritual world, maintained. But the purport Prabhupada goes into more depth. Krishna is known as the Lord of Threes. Three. Who can think of threes that Krishna is the Lord of? Okay, the threefold vetting form. Well, that's what else?
The three modes of material nature.
Three modes of material nature. The three Vishnus. The three worlds. Right? What else is mentioned? Three.
Sandinian.
Right, the three spiritual energies. What about the three overall energies?
Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva.
Oh, okay, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva.
The threefold, the Anandani and Sadhini.
Well, internal, external, and yes, that's what I was saying. Internal, external, and martial. Yes. Priyananda Maharaj was a young student at UC Berkeley, and when he started practicing Krishna consciousness. You heard the story then?
It's the one on video.
so he was just overwhelmed by the realization, Krishna is God, Krishna is God, Krishna is God. And so he dove right in, dropped out of school, moved into the ashram, shaved his head, Krishna's God. And then he asked Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you should stay in school. So with his dhoti and tilak and sika, he went back to class. And on his desk, he would set up a little altar. Didn't want to be contaminated by all this mundane association. So set up a little altar. And he would debate his teachers. Don't forget on the Maharaj. He was an excellent debater. so he was taking a physics class, and the physics teacher was saying, describing the four types of energies, kinetic, whatever. And then he said, "No, there's three types of energies: internal, external, and marginal." So the internal, external, and marginal focuses are important to understand. Which of those three are we? Marginal. Although we're spiritual, as Prabhupada quotes in the Gita and the purport, Prakritim Vidyatma, Eva Bhuta Mahabhava, 15th chapter, Krishna describes the various external energies, but then he says, in addition, there is a superior energy, which are the living entities. So we are comprised of spiritual energy, but we have a material body, or we're marginal. We are spiritual beings, but we have a material body. So we're not the gross material energy, nor are we the pure spiritual energy. In our present state, we are marginal. The example is given of the beach. The beach is neither wet nor dry. It's neither land nor water. It's on the margin. It's shifting. But it is neither one entirely. So as marginal energy, we have this option to turn left or turn right, to go to spiritual or material energies. Obviously, most people are acting under the influence of the material energy. In fact, it's so common that people don't even realize the choice. That it's an option, that's just all there is. As I was a young man, there was a hair dye commercial that went, if I only have one life to live, let me live it as a blonde. So that this is pretty much the motto material consciousness. Just get the most out of this life, whatever it takes. This is the marginal energy. But the spiritual energy is where we find lasting solace, where we find actual fulfillment. In order to connect with that spiritual energy, we need to know it's the source of all energies. That's the point. Purusha, the person. When we think about God, I know from my life, that's yours also, the idea of God was a very vague notion at best, and it was often associated with the religious organization that we weren't necessarily wanting to be part of. So it's sort of, if you want God, you go to this church, but I don't like the church, so therefore I don't need God. Problem with the challenge of understanding God is to recognize that a person is always the topmost manifestation of anything. For example, if there's a company, a big corporation, well, it all started like Apple. Apple Corporation started in a garage with a couple of nerds fooling around with electronics, right? And then those persons manifested through their creativity and energy this whole massive company. So a person exists behind everything. And that's the problem with going into spiritual energy. We have to acknowledge the personality that is there. There's a innate nature that we all have to be impersonal. In other words, if we could disappear and vanish, we would end any pain and discomfort and suffering. And that was very appealing when we're suffering. If I could just vanquish my existence, or if there just weren't any people to hassle me. My wife had her astrology done recently, and the astrologer told her, you need people and you don't like people. She said that's exactly right. You don't like people, but you need them. So this is impersonalism. We don't want to acknowledge the personality behind all of the energies. We don't want to acknowledge this personality who has given us all the ingredients for sacrifice. So much better to just take what we can and be proud of it. Right? Look how much I've piled. Look how much I've achieved. Then at no point do we have to acknowledge that we have only borrowed this or stolen it from the actual proprietor. This is described in the Gita as the living entity under the spell of the most material nature thinks himself the doer of activities that are actuality carried out by nature. The actions we do, the things we accumulate, all these products of the material energy, unless and until we recognize who is the proprietor. Ishyavashamidam sarvam yatachakra. Everything animate and inanimate in the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. And by this principle of recognizing the actual proprietor and then engaging in sacrifice, returning things to their original owner, we become happy. Then we become connected with the spiritual energy. There really is no other way to connect with God. We can't connect with God, for example, by meditation, by trying to just perceive Him all the time. Just trying to perceive somebody in this world will get you arrested, right? Or stalking. Why is that? We want to enjoy this person, but we don't want them to know that we're watching. Somehow we want to exploit. So we can't approach God with that ulterior motive. I just want to enjoy godliness as I'm enjoying other things in this world. Ultimately, in the beginning, that's okay. In other words, we take up service to Krishna just because of the bliss. That's okay. That's like the Vedas. Whatever gets us started. If it's a kirtan, it's usually, what is it usually that gets us started? His prasad. Be honest. Srila Prabhupada said, you have all come because of prasad. And what is prasadam? It is food. Yes, we need food. But what is special about prasadam is food offered in sacrifice. And therefore, we are getting acquainted with sacrifice. We're engaged in sacrifice, perhaps for the first time, in such an innocuous way, such a simple way. And that takes us to the experiential level of spiritual life. You see, we tend to think that spiritual life is just all about what am I going to experience. There were some bhaktas who were washing dishes one time. Someone turned to the other one and said, "What are you here for?" "I'm in it for the bliss. I'm in it for the bliss." So that's okay in the beginning. But what does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? As we progress in our sacrifice to Krishna, our connection with Krishna, he says, "Natanam najanam sundarim kavitam ma jagadish." I don't want any sort of reciprocation. I don't care. Ashlishiva padaratam. You can treat me nicely or poorly. I don't care what you do. My devotion is not changing. That is the position of being fixed in sacrifice. That is the ultimate conclusion of the Vedas. So this is why Srimad Bhagavatam is called Vikama Kalpakuror Galitam Phalam. It is the ripened fruit of all this Vedic literature. The best thing you can order on Amazon. It is the ultimate perfection of sacrifice. So the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, such as here, echo and they replicate those from the Purusha Sutta. What Brahma is saying here is the same thing that Purusha Sutta is saying. That God gives all the ingredients for sacrifice and then gives us the opportunity to use them. He's the proprietor, he's the source, and he's the goal and the purpose of our sacrifice. This is the same message from the Vedas and from Srimad Bhagavatam. The difference in Srimad Bhagavatam is very specific about who is Krishna, who is that person, who is that Purusha. Purushottam, the supreme person. Okay, so one last part of the Rig Veda verses of the Purusha Sutta has to do with Varnashram, since today is Martin Luther King's appearance day, right? His birthday. So it's being celebrated then. A few words about that. So in the Gita, Krishna explains that he creates this Varnashram system because Chaturvarna Mayashras Guna Karma Vibhavas to accommodate the various natures of everybody. Just like the Vedas appeal to all natures, so Krishna creates this Varnashram so that everybody can be accommodated. The problem with this Varnashram is that it's perverted into the caste system, which defines your assignment of worth and your position in society based on your birth. That is the perverted version that has manifested in Kali Yuga. People are naturally very critical of the caste system. In a free society, everybody should be judged by their merits, and by their own grit, what they accomplish, not by their birth. Everybody recognizes that. But and therefore the caste system is rejected. But what they fail to recognize is that no, it is natural that people will be attracted to various kinds of work. There's a beautiful example in the Mahabharata of Karna. Karna was born of Kunti, out of wedlock, by demigod Surya. Kunti didn't know this was all going to happen. So not knowing what else to do, she pulled a Moses before Moses existed. She put her baby in a basket in the river and prayed somebody would find him and take care of her. Someone did, but it was a Shudra. It was a carpenter or a charioteer, variously described in who found the child and was so happy to have the child. So he was raised in a Shudra family. But from his very birth, he had this inclination towards weapons, warfare. So he was always confused as a result. Why do I have this tendency? It wasn't until later he understood this divine birth that enabled him to understand. So we have innate qualities, all of us, and finding them out is the goal of Varnashram. This is the duty of the Guru to actually help us find where we can sustainably serve Krishna. That's the whole idea. So, in the same way, this bodily concept as the bodily concept has created the caste system out of Varnashram, so does racial discrimination create a sort of caste system on the same bodily life. This is human history. That the comparison of bodies for those on the material platform is very important. My body is better than your body. It's gone on as long as there have been conditioned souls in the bodies in this world. So the principle of equality Martin Luther King espoused is very big. It is based on solid principles. The problem is that it's not based on spiritual principles, understanding how the soul and body. That part is missing. Just that everybody should be treated equally. That's the mode of goodness. But why should they be treated equally? Because everyone is a spiritual being. That is Suddhasa. That's spiritual realization. So it's a mode of goodness event to observe this occasion today, to appreciate somebody who advocated rising above discrimination based on the body. But the full picture, to get the full picture, we have to understand bodily being. In a similar way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about the principle of devotee, being a devotee. We think about a devotee as somebody who chants Hare Krishna, but Bhaktivinoda gives a much broader definition. Anyone who believes in God, anybody who submits to God, accepts God, should be regarded as a devotee. And being critical of such people is offending. So there are religious systems that accommodate people in the modes of nature. This is what we're talking about in the Vedas. Right? For example, Lord Chaitanya was speaking with the Chandakazi. Chandakazi wanted to stop Sankirtan, not because he was personally against it, but because he was being pressured by the local priests, the Brahmins. The Brahmins did not like the fact that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was making spiritual life available to anybody, regardless of their caste or birth. They didn't like that because that threatened their position. So they went to the Muslim ruler and said, please stop this Sankirtan. So the Muslim ruler forbade Kirtan and have his men break a madanga. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu organized a civil disobedience rally. And they marched on the home of the Qazi. So the Qazi was threatened. He felt very threatened. So he came out to see what Chaitanya. Who assured him, no, we're not here to threaten. We just want to do the sacrifice. So they had a discussion about scriptures. The Qazi challenged, is this actually part of the scriptural basis of that you represent? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established that. And then they also discussed the Quran, about which Chaitanya was very knowledgeable. And the Quran, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out certain overlaps with the Vedas and then also certain differences. So in the purport describing this conversation, Prabhupada called it the scripture of the deities. The Bible, the Quran, these say nothing about, or nothing, at least in the modern interpretation, about non-violence towards animals. Therefore, people who like to eat flesh will subscribe to these if they want to be. So in this way, we have religious practices that are in the modes of nature, but they're still much better than just being godless. And people who are godless are the most unfortunate. So it's sad because of the hypocrisy in religion, people embrace godlessness, and the churches are closing. You see it somewhat in America, but more you see it in Europe and Australasia. It's really incredible, actually. David Rees Maharaj says when he's presenting Krishna consciousness, said you can never say the G word. Yeah, don't say it. Don't say it because it's the absolute, the supreme. But if you say the G word, then you turn you right off. Churches are empty, congregations are diminishing. It's happening in America also. But the point is that real spirituality is not restricted to some organized religion. Real spirituality means to connect with Krishna and the person behind the creation. And to facilitate someone connecting with Krishna is so much beyond organized religion. It's an act of great compassion. It's an act of great service. You're trying to engage not just some gross material energy, but this living entity, trying to reconnect them with Krishna. We sing in the morning, Chi Radhika Madhaviyor Madhurya, and the next one as well. These two verses talk about the spiritual master being very dear because they connect the gopis with Radha Krishna's intimate pastimes. So this is actually spirituality, that we reconnect, help people reconnect with their eternal position as Krishna's servants. And this is facilitating that in an organized way. It was the vision of our previous acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and of course, Srila Prabhupada. We facilitate that in an organized way, so it can be done on a broad scale. It's not just a matter of believing in some churchism. Say. Okay, so our Sangha is alive and functional so much as we make the sacrifice out of our service every day. Okay, anyway, thoughts on this subject. We talked about how the Vedas are the desire tree, how Bhagavatam is the essence, how the Purusha Sukta comes from the Vedas and is confirmed and explained by Bhagavatam. Right? Any reflections, other thoughts, questions? Max?
I have 3 questions, if you don't mind.
So Lord of Three.
First, I have just a quick comment. One of the verses, or one of the words in the verse is aham. Every time I see the word aham, it reminds me when I'm talking to you and you go aha. It sounds like aham. So, just a comment. My first question is it possible to be transcendentally situated although in a material mode? Or if you're transcendentally situated, does that mean you're completely free of the modes?
Free of the modes. Mamchayo Vyavishaya, Bhakti Yogena say, Sagunam Sam, and Brahma Ruya says that by rendering devotional service, one rises above the modes. There is devotional service in the modes of nature, which is described in the third canto. For example, if a person thinks, I'm the best devotee in the temple, what mode is that?
Ignorant.
Passion. Yeah. Passion. If one thinks, I don't want to be away from all this. That's it. Right. I'm such a good person. I'm such a good devotee. I'm doing everything just right. I'm very humble. This actually is mode of goodness. I want you to live right. You carry more Prabhu. Suchi and puts away. That's true. This devotional service in the mode of goodness where we get attached to the concept of being like a good, as opposed to just doing what is Krishna want. Like when the gopis were, when all these devotees were asked for dust from their feet for Krishna's headache, everyone turned it down except the gopis. Way out of the Vedic norm, but they did mean that's what Krishna wants. So that's the true disciple. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so you can be doing devotional service in one.
No, it's different. You can be tainted by the modes. Your service can be tainted by the modes. But if we're actually in the modes of nature, then we're not really doing service. For example, taking intoxicants is totally in the mode of ignorance. You can't do that for Krishna. You see? But being grumpy or being lazy in your service, okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's devotional service in the mode of ignorance. But it is devotional service.
All right, thank you. And then my second question is, if Krishna comes down to this material world for 2 reasons: to eradicate demons, protect the bodies, And why is it that we're seeing empty congregations, churches closing down, and hypocrisy? Why are we seeing that God's purpose is to try and protect?
God's purpose is to fulfill the desires of living entities. Okay? Eko bahunam yoga dhanam. One is fulfilling the desires of the. So if people want to be separate from God, he fulfills their desire. He's not imposing himself. He's fulfilling the desires. People don't want to know him, then every facility is for him. So he's very broad-minded. Okay. So if people don't want to go to church, and the church is closed down, that's their desire, not his desire. Nick,
Last question. Bhagavad Gita, CC. If we want to, cross-reference, study around and whatnot, want to take a look at the Bible as well. What's your thought there?
And Ravinder Swarup refers to books outside of the ISKCON canon as Boga books. Okay? So is Boga bad? No, but you have to offer it to Krishna. You have to know how to offer it to Krishna. So it's generally intelligent if you want to understand Bhakti Yoga, you read Prabhupada's books completely and thoroughly, and make sure that you understand them. And then reading other books, you can objectively see, okay, this is similar to this. Just as Lord Chaitanya did with this discussion with the cosmos. So if we get all excited about spirituality, I know for me, I read the Bible for years. I didn't understand it at all until I started understanding not this body, reincarnation, karma from the Gita. So then going back and reading it, it's very interesting. But the first I would say like get a Bhakti Shastri degree at least before delving into a lot of other traditions, unless that's your service, like Stephen's doing religious studies. Right? You have to read Boga books. I do. You do, yes. It's not Boga this, Boga that. Bogus, Boga. As a scholar, you have to learn how to offer them, use them without getting affected by them. Yeah, and I've seen a number of devotees who have studied other traditions get enamored because they don't require regular principles. Okay. Ruth, is that right?
Yep.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Bruce.
I don't know why.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
You were mentioning that Karna had like his own propensity despite his birth. I also heard many times that a devotee can do anything. It doesn't matter what his nature propensity is. But whenever I hear that, I feel a little bit defeated because I don't feel like he can do just anything and be fulfilled. If I don't follow something that feels inspiring to me, then I'll just feel depressed and uninspired in my life. So,
Right. A devotee can act in any varna or it doesn't mean a devotee must act in varna. In other words, we're prepared to do anything, whatever, whether it is our propensity or not. But that's a short term. For the long term, we have to find our varna and ashram in order to be able to sustain our body. That's why varna ashram is so important. So what is our actual nature? What is our actual position that we can sustainably serve Krishna? So your point is well taken. We just have to be prepared to do things that are maybe outside of our comfort zone from time to time before the service of Krishna. Like for Srila Prabhupada to come to America, way out of his comfort zone. Because I'm a Brahmin, I'm living in Vrindavan, I'm studying, I'm writing. But he was way out of his comfort zone in order to serve Krishna. So we don't have to go to that length because we wouldn't be able to maintain. But yeah, on the other hand, if the dishes need to be washed and there's no one else to be washed, whatever. Even though it's not my propensity.
Not my service.
Not my service. They've got not my job. Other questions? Yes, what's your name? Anirudh. Anirudh.
So when you were talking about how we can use the elements on this earth to use for sacrifice to Krishna, I was thinking about how there's a lot of objects in this material world which are not offerable and are not able to be used for sacrifice. And so why does Krishna create material that we cannot use for sacrifice to him?
It's a very, very good question. Excuse me, everything can be used in Krishna service. And I don't know specifically what you're thinking of. Many things might come to mind. But the point is that there is some way to use everything. And the more expert we are in Krishna service, the more we'll see how to utilize those things. Like, an example might be given of the general attitude towards Westerners amongst the Brahmins and the past Brahmins. You know, the Westerners, they're useless, just malechas. Don't go there. You don't want to go there because you might die while you're there. It's malecha desh. And then you'll have to take another birth. So there's a general propensity to be very discriminate against certain types of material energy. But the broad-minded Mahatma has that vision. No, let me use everything. Sir, can you give an example of some energies that you would not be able to use?
Maybe not energy, but certain objects like alcohol, meat.
These things are actually used in Krishna's service because people desire them. Krishna's fulfilling their desire. So in that way, they're being used in Krishna's service. You could say, in general, Maya is opposed to Krishna's service. Anything that's illusory is opposed to Krishna's service. No. Maya is on our team. She is here to direct the living entities back to Krishna. Same purpose. So it's just a matter of our point, how expert we are in using things in Krishna's service. Okay, are we ready for prasad? Okay. So, anyone else? No? Okay. Yes, it was.
I just raised my hand.
Thank you.
There's a nice example of Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati when he was building one of his mosques. So for the workers, they were laboring hard. I think they were a bit too weak. So he arranged actually for them both to be fed by me so they can continue working. It's an extreme example and done by the Acharya. Yeah, in general, based on people's desires.
Yes, it's an important point because we don't want to be puffed up. We don't want to look down on others who are in the modes of material nature. That's the neophyte position. What is the Uttamadikarya? Adhikari sees everyone as important. Even if they're eating meat or drinking alcohol. So because they're spirit, they see the spiritual essence of it. So, Sally not so? Oh, come. Okay. All right. Next time. You're going to be leaving us today, right? Friday. Okay. So, did you one last statement this morning? Sally?
Sure. Yeah, it's coming.
Oh, it's coming. Oh, okay. I thought I was holding up the show.
You are.
Well, bring it on in.
Just one more question. You made a comment about it earlier, but I don't know if you actually expanded on it. So, in terms of chanting, is it better to chant one round really intensely, really engaged, or is it better to chant 4 rounds, say, where you're kind of distracted and not all there?
I knew you would be looking for a loophole. The point of that is that what I was saying is it takes a lot of effort to chant tentatively. It takes effort. It's not something one just does casually. It takes focus, heart, investment, full attention in order to chant properly. So that's the struggle, because our minds are very restless. So it may take a lot of effort, that is chanting many rounds, in order to chant a few attentive. You still have to show up.
Thank you for class. Is the living entity eternally marginal, or is it only marginal while it's embodied?
Eternally marginal. Always have the opportunity. We choose wisely and we become very fixed in our spiritual. But we always have the option. Okay. Mahaprasad Jai. Jai. Prabhupada Jai. Bhagavatam Jai.
Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmi Vaishnave Sava Punyada Question of first is about faith in Mahaprasad, spiritual and deity issue, spirit, transcendental Krishna, Jai. Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, these are set up the tables and rules. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think the audio is on the computer, and I don't know how to get it to that thing, to the box. So sorry about that. Thanks for pointing it out. I'll try to figure it out. But I was wondering, that's a little bit too